a few minutes talking to you about a food that our nation is obsessed with, and it's breakfast cereals. I'm going to try and argue with you today, or argue for you today, that breakfast cereals are junk foods. They're just absolute rubbish. At the turn of the 20th century, protein was the king of nutrients, needed for health, strength, and good energy. However, nutritionists of the day, such as John Harvey Kellogg, began to criticize protein, claiming it was bad for digestion. And then later, as we came through into the 20th century, protein was also being demonized, if you like, as being bad for the kidneys and as increasing acidity and being detrimental to bone health. Now, everyone will be familiar with the name Kellogg, who extolled the virtues of carbohydrates and breakfast cereals, and he invented the humble cornflake. Even just making a cornflake, though, is quite a feat of food processing and leaves a piece of corn far removed from how nature intended it. Now, the corn kernels are cooked to the point of going stale, and then they're forced through rollers that produce the flakes, and then they're toasted at extremely high temperatures so that they're ready to eat. Now, consider that this process renders the cornflake devoid of any nutrition whatsoever. The manufacturers have to add back a host of B vitamins and other nutrients such as iron and other minerals. And you'll read this on the food label that it says fortified with vitamins and minerals, as if this is something to be applauded. It's ridiculous. Now, I believe that Mr. Kellogg would be shocked today if he saw his name associated with a plethora of junk foods that are breakfast cereals. Now, I'm sure that this devout Adventist who promoted the cleanest and healthiest way of living would be horrified seeing sugar-coated chocolate grains being the staple of many people's breakfasts. Research today shows us that even a 30-gram bowl of breakfast cereal can contain up to 11 grams of sugar. And then consider that most breakfast cereals are also high on the glycemic load scale, which means that they will cause a very rapid rise in your blood sugar. Surely they can't be marketed as health foods. Well, they are. See how the manufacturers of brands such as Special K market it as a weight loss food. See how Nestle promote the benefits of whole grain cereals, or how shredded wheat is marketed as being good for the heart. Now, this is marketing at its very worst, and what is even more alarming is that people believe it. I mean, why wouldn't they when they see a beautiful, slim woman being associated with Special K, or an ex-sporting legend promoting shredded wheat? However, consider what Johnny Bowden calls a human's factory-specified food. It certainly isn't highly processed grains loaded with sugar and salt. I believe these junk foods are contributing to our epidemic of obesity, diabetes, insulin resistance, and other chronic diseases. Well, what's the answer? What is our factory specified food? Now, as I've assaulted breakfast cereals as junk food, and just read the label, they're full of sugar and salt, sometimes covered in chocolate. How could they not be junk food? I thought I would redeem myself by suggesting there are two cereals that I would be comfortable with people eating infrequently, and by infrequently I mean once or twice a week. Now, these are porridge and muesli. Now, as always, there are a couple of caveats to this rule. Both of these cereals contain oats, and oats contain gluten nowadays due to cross-pollination. So if you're sensitive to gluten, don't eat oats. Instead, you could look for amaranth or a quinoa-based muesli that you'll be able to find in your health food store, or simply make your own porridge from a mix of ground rice, quinoa flakes, flax meal, adding nuts and seeds and coconut slivers. So if you want a recipe for this, you can find a recipe in my book, the little book of nutrition tips. And if you're going to cook some porridge, add a little bit of butter or a little bit of coconut oil, some flax seeds, slivered almonds, and serve it with some berries. And if you like it sweet, if you like these cereal sweets, try adding some cinnamon or some xylitol instead of sugar. Also look for brands of muesli that are low in sugar and high in nuts and seeds and coconut slivers, and don't be afraid to add more nuts and seeds to the mix. Now, don't use soy milk in either of these foods. So there are many mixed opinions on soy, and I believe that traditional fermented soy eaten in moderation is fine. However, highly processed soy products such as soy milk, soy cheese, soy yogurt are also junk foods. I don't have any problem with dairy, so just use whole milk, semi-skim milks. Otherwise, if you're dairy sensitive, cook it with water. So cook your porridge with water, or just use some quinoa or almond milk on the muesli. Now I know these milks are processed too, but they're not estrogenic like soy milk. So if cereals are junk food, except porridge and muesli, you might be wondering what I think is a healthy breakfast. And I'm just going to run through some of my thoughts on healthy conventional breakfasts. So eggs. Eggs are a great breakfast food. And forget what you've heard about them being bad for your cholesterol and bad for your heart, and the yolk is bad for you and it's full of fat. It's all complete nonsense. Eggs are a great food. They're a great source of protein, essential fats, B vitamins, vitamin D, vitamin A, and nutrients such as phosphatidylcholine, lutein, these nutrients that are good for your eyes and your brain. And now eat them anyway except fried. Have scrambled eggs, poached eggs, or boiled eggs on whole grain, gluten-free toast, for instance. Or try an omelette with some spinach, mushrooms, tomatoes. Just don't eat them every day. Eggs 2 or 3 times a week, and that'll be absolutely fine. Another reasonable breakfast is plain whole Greek yogurt, such as brands like Yo Valley or Rachel's Organic, and serve them with some mixed berries or sliced apples, ground seeds, toasted nuts, and this is another great breakfast. Again, this will provide you with some protein, some healthy fats, and some carbohydrates. And the added berries and the fruit will provide you with some fiber, antioxidants, and the nuts and seeds provide more vitamins and minerals. However, don't eat low-fat yogurts. These products are generally have more sugar in them. And I also think there's nothing wrong with having a healthy grill up once a week. Find some good quality gluten-free sausages, some bacon, and serve it with poached eggs, steamed mushrooms, grilled tomatoes. It's absolutely fine. Now I'm going to reveal what I eat for breakfast pretty much every day, bar the once a week healthy grill up or a bowl of yogurt with some fruit every now and then. I eat meat and nuts for breakfast. So this natural, unprocessed food is what we're designed to eat, what Johnny Bowden calls our factory specified food, not processed grains covered in a splash of dairy. Now I can hear you going, yuck, meat for breakfast, but just think about it. Go back a couple of 100 years ago, what do you think people would have eaten for breakfast? Now we can't be 100% sure as we weren't there. We don't really have records from the time, apart from fossil remains and Paleolithic bone remains, which, by the way, paleontologists such as Laurent Cordain have done a very good job of establishing what our ancestors ate. But there were certainly no processed grains, and people wouldn't have eaten these chocolate-covered cereals covered in milk. They would have eaten what they could have hunted and gathered the day before. Now, they might have eaten the remains of hunted rabbit, boar, or deer. They may have eaten some foraged berries or some nuts or some other plants, but not a bowl of Cheerios. Now, it doesn't really matter what meat you eat, and when I say meat, I mean all meat, fish, seafood, poultry, and simply eat a serving of what satisfies your appetite, and serve it with some unsalted raw nuts such as cashews, almonds, hazelnuts, macadamias. And you could also eat some berries or other low glycemic load fruit such as an apple or a pear. Now this type of breakfast will certainly fill you up, and it will give you a healthy serving of protein, essential fats, vitamins, minerals, and the fruit will give you some added fiber. And I can hear the orthodox medical and nutritional mainstream shouting that this will raise your cholesterol, blah blah blah. Well, if you just eat as much seafood and fish as you do meat, and the fish and the seafood will provide you omega-3 fats, which are known to improve cholesterol. And you combine this with nuts, which are full of beta-cytosterols, which raise your HDL cholesterol, your good cholesterol, and they lower your so-called LDL, bad cholesterol. You have no problems with your cholesterol levels. Now, there are always exceptions to this. Certain people might have genetic polymorphisms where they have higher cholesterol levels. So if that's the case, just pay attention to your latest blood test results that you get from the doctor. But in the vast majority, 95, 99% of the time, eating these kinds of breakfasts will actually improve your cardiovascular markers, and it will improve your insulin sensitivity and reduce the risk of problems such as PCOS and diabetes. Now, it's important that you just don't eat the same type of meat every day. So if you eat beef every day, then it might cause a problem for you. But if you rotate your food sensibly, you'll be providing your body with a host of nutrients, and you'll be exposing your immune system to a host of different things that you won't build up a reaction to, and you'll be absolutely fine. So I'm just going to give you a very brief example. Day one, so it might be Monday morning, eat a salmon fillet with a handful of almonds and some blueberries. Day two might be some turkey escallops with a handful of cashews. The following day, you might eat some homemade beef patties with some pecans or some raspberries. And then on the fourth day, you might eat some chicken strips with walnuts and a sliced apple. And you could simply just rotate through that 4-day menu, or chuck in that grill up that I talked about, or maybe once a week have some yogurt or some muesli or some porridge. So you've basically got a nice variety of breakfasts, which are predominantly meat, fish, seafood based, but with some variety to satisfy your appetite. Okay, if you liked any of this information, you can visit us at www.peakxvfitness.com, where you can get a host of information on health and fitness. You can download your free Weight Loss Secrets Revealed report, and you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube for a whole load of great information.